Hello, my name's Ken Colgan with Thebimguys.com. We do Revit, Navisworks, and AutoCAD modeling, coordination, training, and consulting. In this video, Tom at Takeform asked me to look into how we could automate the process of putting in signage, placards, etc. on a large project. So what we did, I gave it to one of the guys in my office here, and they ran with it, and here's what we came up with. So this is concept of how we can utilize the data sets or data that's available as we move forward. So let's take a quick look. I'm going to start with the sketch pad here, and we'll talk about kind of concept. When I talked to Tom, some of the things that came up was, first of all, the project would be done in Revit, and we'd be using BIM Cloud. So here's our BIM Cloud. Now, BIM Cloud is just an online service, and that's where all the information is stored. So in BIM, let's say 360, and that is the cloud. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create our model what that contains all the signage. So that'll be us over here. So let's go ahead and create a little model. Now, this model, we're not going to draw on the walls or anything like that, but what we're going to do is we're going to link in from the cloud the architect's model. So we'll take the architect's model with all the good data that's in it, lots of good data, including room names, room numbers, etc., and we'll link that in. Once it's linked in here, then what we're going to do is a couple of things. Now, we started to discuss how we'd attack this problem. The first thing was, okay, we have a placard that has to go on a room. So let me go ahead and I'll draw a few more little rooms in here. So here's our rooms, and maybe we have a few doors, etc. So what we need to do is put a placard on this wall. So I'll pick a new color. So let's say right here. So I'm going to put this little placard that's going to denote the information in this room, which is an office, and maybe it's room 208. So at first we said, let's kind of grab the information from here, and what we'll do is we'll grab it out the architect's model, and then we'll just port it directly to that tag. Whammo. Okay, that sounds kind of cool. But the problem that started to pop up was, okay, what if this has some long, antiquated name in here that the architect uses, but for the placard, we want something kind of short and sweet, and it may not even fit on a placard, so what do we do? So what we decided was, let's put an interface in, or an intermediary location that somebody could edit or adjust the naming based on what they want it to be. So we thought, okay, what if we use, how about Excel? Excel's a pretty straightforward application, easy to use, about anybody could do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a little bit of programming, and we're going to extract the data. So we extract the data that we want out of the architect's model. It'll fall into a schedule like so, and we'll have a set of columns. We're going to have one column here that'll have the actual architect info, and that's the actual architect, so this would be room name, okay, and let's say name there, okay, and I'll make it a little longer, room name, and then we'll have another column that'll be room number, okay. Then, with that in mind, so we extract all that data. Now, once the data is extracted, it'll fill out all this information. What we'll do in two separate columns, let me go ahead and actually erase some of this because it's getting too wide, just for ease of, make it easy for us to see. Got to wipe that out a bit. Okay, so we're going to have our room number. Let's go ahead and change back to this. Room number, and we'll have our name, right? So in another column, which could be actually just duplicated right next to it, taking the same data and just throwing it in two more columns. So we'll do that, and what we'll have is a secondary column. We'll do this in Mango just so it matches above. So this would be the signage, right? So we have the sign information over here. It'd be the room number and the room name in a separate column. Now what can happen is I could read over here that it has a certain name, but I may decide as the sign designer or working with the owner that we want this to be a little shortened version. For instance, maybe we got maybe it says banquet room and guest area, and that's just way too big. So we may shorten it to say just banquet and guest. So we put it here. Okay, so what we do is we have this intermediate interface where a user could come in here and tweak the names and numbers as needed. Once that's done, then what we do is we port this back in using, again, a little bit of automation, port that back in, and what it would do is take this the data from this room, and now let's go through the process again. So it'll take the data from room, let's say 208, port it in here for editing. Once it's done, it'll port it back into this location, and then the user or the tag will pull that data. So that's the process. I know it looks a little crazy here, but with this, we get a lot of good things going on. Number one, we get the ability to pull the data directly from the architect. So the new room numbers and room information are correct. We can also pull it at different times as we move forward in the project. Let's say maybe a month and a half from now, a lot of rooms were renamed and renumbered. We could draw that data out again, verify the data, and then port that information back in and update our signage as needed. So I think this would be an excellent way to go about it. Now we will have to hand place a lot of the signs, and it will have to be some coding done to make all this work smoothly. But we put a little example together, and I'm going to go through and run that right now. So that's concept. Let's look at it in real now. I'm going to go to a floor plan here, and this floor plan is actually linked in. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on a little button here, and this is actually a link. A little sample file that we just put together with some rooms and names in it. So this is directly, let's say, we pulled a copy of it from the cloud, or we linked directly to the cloud itself. Now, being we have this data in here, if it updates, well, then if we have it linked to the cloud, it automatically updates, which is great. Now, we do want that intermediary where we can change it, because if someone puts in a funky name, we don't want it blast into our signs. So that's where that Excel document comes in. Now, once we do that, we'd place all our placards and run some routines to make things happen. And let's see what would happen. If we would run straight raw data, if I go back to my little graphics again, and if we use the thing in the beginning where I said, let's just take the raw data and blast it to the room. We started to think about this, and here's what came up. Let's zoom in on this room here. You'll see this room says Bellman and luggage closet. You'll see how big it is in relationship to that placard. Over here, you see we have coat. Now, if we go back to the floor plan, as we look here, see it says coat. You're like, oh, that's awesome. That works great. Bellman and luggage closet, breakfast room. But what happens is some of the terminology of the room names may not fit directly on here. So we're going to actually, like I said, we'll port this stuff out, put it in an interface that's easy to use, let the user edit it, and then we'll go back in. So let's take a look at the data that's been extracted and how we're able to edit it. So I've got it pulled up, and you can see here, this is the raw data that was pulled up, and we just told it to mimic the columns over here, so we have a kind of a double set. By doing that, we have the core data that was coming here. Now what's going to happen is it's going to say these are the tags from the first floor. It is a particular take form. This is a door placard style 3, and then it's being placed on the breakfast room door, right? And this is space number 3. Again, all these numbers can change. And then it says breakfast room here. So this would be on the placard. Now let's say if someone decides, okay, I know the room is called breakfast room, but let's just call it breakfast on the placard. So as long as you work in the green area, green is good to go, right? I'll take that information here, and I'll say take out the word breakfast or the word room, and I'll do it on this placard also. So notice I'm able actually to edit the placards right here in Excel, which makes it awesome for just about anybody to edit. So he or she can take the information out, and I'll take out and just put the word Bellman. So I've changed 3, Bellman, Bellman, and breakfast. We can also add a little coding in here. You see it says equal, not equal. So if I wanted to check things, I could see, okay, which ones are not equal, and then I can visually do an audit here. So again, another check as we move forward. So now that we've got this, what we'll do is whoever's editing this, maybe someone at Takeform, what they'll do is they'll go ahead and save it, and then they will email it back to us. Once it's saved and emailed back to us, we'll just close out of that. And so here we are back in our office, and they'll send us the latest set, and then at this point, what we'll do is we'll reintegrate that data back into Revit. Now, if you're not that familiar with Revit, Revit is just a big fancy database with a graphical interface. So it's a giant database, right? And then you have kind of cool things in it. So if I was to pick on something in this model, it gives us all kind of fun stuff about it. So here we are, and we've got our model, and in the model are our little placards, and you can see them right here. Now, as we mentioned before, the placard, let's go back to the section, you'll notice that it's still got the original tags in it, but maybe someone has gone through and at Takeform and made the edits. So we'll take that data, and then what we're going to do is we're going to run a routine again and refresh all the tags. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And I've just rerun the routine, and what you'll notice is, if we zoom in here, notice how this now says Bellman. So what we've done is we've told Revit to go ahead and draw that data in. So now what we have is, to kind of bring it full circle, is a way to automate the process, a way to do a check and balance and let the certain groups make changes. For instance, maybe the owner decides that they want that to say Bellman. So take form can make that change. The file is then updated or uploaded to us, and we refresh the data. At that point, all the tags will be refreshed, and you'll see on the wall here how that information is now updated. So that's how we'd go ahead and do it. Now, we also want maybe another visual check. So we start running all these routines, and how does everybody keep track of this? Well, a lot of times it's just a matter of producing some PDFs, and what we'll do is we can send them back to Takeform, or we can send them to whoever that can actually do a visual audit or a visual check on how these things work. So let's take a look at that now. You'll notice it says Bellman, and it says breakfast 3, Bellman 4, and I think coat 5. Just again, this was a simple routine. Let's go back, and what we're going to do is put together a set of PDFs that will put more information right in front of the checker. So what we've done is, in this view, and we'd produce a view for each floor or whatever we need, what it's going to do, it's going to actually list out, you can see here, it's got the actual architect's name that he or she's used, got the room name, and then you'll notice these little dots. The orange dot, is showing you where there's a placard. You can actually see it underneath the little dot there. But it's a graphical representation of, hey, we're placing a placard here. It tells you what's the information. See, it says corridor 8, and it's using the Takeform door placard style 3. So quickly we can figure out or understand what's happening in this model. We could quickly look around and say, okay, it looks like everything's caught, and then you go over here like, oh, we missed one. So notice how we can quickly do a visual audit of the project. If we have any questions, we can go here. So what you see in this graphic representation is actually what's being also ported onto that placard. So using some automation and some checks and balances so we don't have things go awry, hopefully this will work for you guys. So if you have any questions, give us a call. If you're new to us and you haven't heard of us before, we are Thebimguys.com, and again, we do Navisworks, Revit, and AutoCAD training, support, modeling, and consulting. So there you go. Hope that works out for you guys. Give us a call.